There have been lots of stories over the past few months on identity theft and how the information can be used against you. You may have heard something about stolen identity tax fraud. You may even have been a victim of it. It's the biggest tax scam around now. This is how it works. Someone steals your identity, files a bogus tax return in your name before you do, and collects a refund check from the IRS. It's so simple you would think it would never work, but it does. It's been around since 2008, and you'd think the IRS would have come up with a way to stop it. It hasn't. Instead, the scam's gone viral, tripling in the past 3 years. The IRS estimates that it sent out nearly 3 million fraudulent refunds to con artists last year.
I'm going to let it run for a little bit, and then I'm going to start this again.
There have been lots of stories over the past few months on identity theft and how the information can be used against you. You may have heard something about stolen identity tax fraud. You may even have been a victim of it. It's the biggest tax scam around now. This is how it works. Someone steals your identity, files a bogus tax return in your name before you do, and collects a refund check from the IRS. It's so simple you would think it would never work, but it does. It's been around since 2008, and you'd think the IRS would have come up with a way to stop it. It hasn't. Instead, the scam's gone viral, tripling in the past 3 years. The IRS estimates that it sent out nearly 3 million fraudulent refunds to con artists last year. And according to a new report from the Government Accountability Office out tomorrow, it cost taxpayers $5.2 billion. The Treasury Department believes the numbers are much higher than that, proving once again what every con man already knows. There is no underestimating the general dysfunction and incompetence of government bureaucracy.
It's a tsunami of fraud that we have been encountering. The vast number of fraudulent tax returns was something that I don't think the IRS ever really was ready for.
Wilfredo Ferrer is the United States Attorney for Southern Florida, and George Pirro, the agent in charge of the Miami field office of the FBI. Together, they run a federal task force operating at the epicenter of the largest tax scam in the country.
Florida has been third year in a row on the top, number one, in terms of ID theft complaints. And Miami is also number one in terms of metropolitan areas that suffer from identity fraud.
Don't take this the wrong way. Is there any scheme that Miami is not number one at?
We have very sophisticated and good criminals, who know how to defeat the system.
For decades now, South Florida has been the Silicon Valley for scam artists, drawn here by the weather, the beaches, and the opportunity to make lots of money without actually doing much work. There's Medicare fraud, mortgage fraud, securities fraud, and now what the Justice Department calls stolen identity tax refund fraud, a tax preparation scheme epitomized by an overabundance of questionable-looking establishments that have sprung up here over the past few years. But this scam is so easy you don't even need an office.
For this fraud, all you need is a laptop, someone's social security number, date of birth, not even your name. They can do it from their kitchen table, they can do it at the fast food chain restaurants, or they can do it on the beach as long as they have Wi-Fi access.
Actually, Corey Williams says you don't even need a laptop. You can file phony returns on your cell phone if you have the right app. He used to be a legitimate tax preparer until his boss turned him onto the scam. Before he was arrested and sentenced to 40 months in prison, he'd made millions and millions of dollars.
Anybody who knew about it, you'd be a fool to not try to get involved with making some money. I could wake up in the comfort of my own home and just get on a laptop, do about 15 returns a day. 15 times $3,000 a return, that's $45,000 a day.
So you had a home office?
Yeah, I used to work I would work in my boxes and a t-shirt. Yeah.
It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Williams gave us a demonstration. 1, you collect or buy a list of stolen identities that are readily available in Miami if you know the right people. 2, you go to one of dozens of tax preparation sites online And using the stolen Social Security numbers and dates of birth, you fill out a completely bogus W-2 form claiming a modest refund of a few $1,000.
It has given us a refund of $4,834.
Free, you tell the IRS if you want the refund mailed to your house, wired to your bank account, or loaded onto a prepaid debit card.
Do you have any idea how many bogus returns you filled out? It has to be like in the thousands.
Did the IRS pay all of it?
On a percentage range, you'd say they would pay out 40% of the tax returns.
Which hit the send button. How long did it take you to get a check?
7 days.
7 days.
Yes.
So you'd send them these returns, and 7 days later, you'd get a check.
Yes.
40% of the time.
40% of the time.
Where would you have them send the check?
You can send the checks to our address, any address. I've seen cases where 25 checks came to one address and the mailman delivered it.
It sounded so outrageous, we wanted to run it by the federal task force. So you just put down a name and a social security number and you could make up an employer or the amount of money that was earned and withheld, and send it off to the IRS. And they'll send you a check back for the refund?
They will pay most of the time unless they catch that there's some fraudulent, information. And then it's our job to chase.
I'm still amazed that you don't need to provide any documentation when you file your tax return.
There are no supporting documents when you're filing electronically. And that's the ease or the convenience that was created for the benefit of the instant tax credit, which is now being exploited by criminals.
You would think that the IRS computers would notice that they were sending thousands of checks to a handful of addresses, but they didn't. And you might expect that the IRS would match taxpayer returns with legitimate W-2 forms filed by employers. It doesn't do that either, because the law requires refund checks to be sent out within 6 weeks, and employer W-2s are often not available until months later. So if a bogus return is received before a legitimate one, the check will go out to the crooks.
The way that you learn that you become a victim of this is when you go and try to file your return and the IRS tells you, well, you have a refund. You're like, no, I haven't. Well, yes, you have. Well, it wasn't you, it was the fraudster who used your identity to file the return.
And it's not an easy problem to get fixed. Many of the people in this line outside the IRS office in Plantation, Florida, are victims of the fraud, waiting to prove their identity and claim their rightful refund. They will eventually be reimbursed, but it can involve massive amounts of paperwork, multiple visits to the office, and months of waiting.
And this is what I call the sort of the nightmarish process of clearing up your identity. I have seen cases of individuals who have almost lost their businesses because they did not get the refund check in time. I've seen individuals who have almost lost their place at a nursing home because they needed that refund to pay for that year's worth of services. And it's a real shame. It's a real shame.
Did you know about this before you got this job? I had no idea about this before I started getting briefed last fall. John Koskinen is the commissioner of the IRS, his fourth commissioner in just 2 years. There have been lots of stories over the past